Netflix has a science fiction catalog that spans from global cultural phenomena to buried gems that deserve far more attention than they're getting. Today, we brought together 20 of the best series that bend reality, build worlds you can't stop exploring, and ask questions that follow you for days after the final episode. Something for every kind of genre fan, from space adventures to psychological horror, dystopias and time loop thrillers that'll have you filling pages of notes. But before we dive in, it would mean a lot if you took a second to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. Number 20. 3 Body Problem. During China's Cultural Revolution in the 60s, an astrophysicist makes a decision that sets off a chain of events that will shake humanity decades later. In the present, a group of scientists from across the world begins experiencing inexplicable phenomena, experiments failing without reason, visions that seem like messages, and a growing certainty that something or someone is actively interfering with the species' scientific progress. The threat they uncover doesn't come from within, it comes from a star system 4 light-years away, where a civilization that has spent eons searching for a stable planet found Earth's address. An adaptation of Lou Sixon's celebrated trilogy, produced by Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, Netflix's series expands the world of the book with a visual scale and narrative ambition that few science fiction projects have attempted. This isn't an action series, it's ideas-driven sci-fi, quantum physics converted into narrative, and a meditation on what it means for humanity to face for the first time an enemy it cannot negotiate with. Dense, intelligent, and built for viewers who want something that makes them think. Number 19. Snowpiercer. The attempt to stop global warming went catastrophically and literally wrong. The world froze. Humanity's only survivors travel aboard the Snowpiercer, a perpetual train that circles the planet without stopping and reproduces within its cars the same class structure that destroyed the outside world. Those in the tail cars live in miserable conditions. Those in first class live in obscene luxury. Andre Layton, a detective from the tail-turned-resistance leader, works from within the system to subvert it while the train's controlling power, led by Melanie Cavill, uses him to solve crimes it needs solved. The series adapts the French graphic novel and Bong Joon-ho's film with its own identity and a social allegory that never loses its edge. The first 2 seasons are top-tier television. Jennifer Connelly carries the central character's moral complexity with extraordinary precision. There are betrayals, conspiracies, and a question that persists beneath every episode. What kind of world do we deserve to build when the previous one no longer exists? Number 18. Stranger Things. Hawkins, Indiana, 1983. Will Byers disappears one night, and what starts as a small-town police investigation ends up revealing something the government has been hiding for decades. A secret lab, experiments on children with psychic abilities, and a portal to a parallel dimension called the Upside Down, inhabited by entities that shouldn't exist. His friends Mike, Dustin, and Lucas, along with Eleven, a girl with telekinetic powers who escaped the lab, are the first to understand what's happening, while the adults take much longer to believe. The Duffer Brothers built a cultural phenomenon that captured something very few series manage: the exact feeling of being a kid in the 80s, with its specific cultural references, its particular fears, and a sense of adventure that blends Spielberg with Stephen King. The first 2 seasons are flawless. The series scales in ambition and budget across its 4 seasons, while always maintaining the emotional core between characters that made it irresistible from the very first episode. One of the most significant television phenomena of the last decade. Number 17. 1899. A steamship crosses the Atlantic in 1899, packed with immigrants searching for a new life in America. Europeans of different nationalities, languages, and secrets share a claustrophobic space on the open sea. When the ship spots another vessel adrift and the captain orders an approach, what they find has no logical explanation: a lone child surrounded by the dead, and a signal that shouldn't exist. From that moment, the reality of the voyage begins to crack. What starts as a period thriller quietly becomes something far stranger, denser, and more disorienting. The creators of Dark Baron, Bo Odar, and Janchi Friese prove again they know how to build a mystery with infinite layers, impeccable cinematography, and a tension that never lets up. The season finale left audiences worldwide stunned. Then Netflix canceled it, and it became one of the platform's most widely criticized decisions in recent years. There's an extraordinary story buried on this ship, and we're never going to see it told in full. For those who can tolerate stories without closure, it's among the best things streaming has produced in its genre. Number 16. Raising Dion. Nicole Warren is a single mother dealing with the recent loss of her husband when she discovers that her 7-year-old son, Dion, is developing extraordinary powers. He levitates. He can create snowstorms in the living room. And he's starting to understand that he can do things no child should be able to do. The challenge isn't just keeping him safe from a world that wouldn't understand what he is, it's figuring out where those powers came from and what connection they have to his father's disappearance. The series operates at a frequency rarely explored within the superhero genre: parenting. The central axis isn't action or external threat, but the relationship between a mother learning to be both parents at once and to never lose sight of the child amid the extraordinary. Alicia Wainwright as Nicole and young Josiah Young as Dion build a genuinely moving dynamic. Raising Dion was canceled after 2 seasons, with its story unresolved, generating extra frustration for everyone who became attached to its characters. One of the most lamented cancellations in the Netflix catalog. Number 15. The Umbrella Academy. On October 1st, 1989, 43 women gave birth simultaneously, despite not having been pregnant. An eccentric billionaire named Reginald Hargreaves adopted 7 of those children and trained them as superheroes under the name the Umbrella Academy. Years later, the deeply dysfunctional adult siblings reunite after their adoptive father's death and discover that the apocalypse is closer than anyone expected. Each sibling has spent decades processing trauma in different ways. One speaks to the dead, one controls time, one has the strength of a dozen men, and all of them carry emotional scars that no superpower can fix. The Umbrella Academy achieves something difficult in the superhero genre, taking seriously the damage of growing up that way without ever losing the dark humor and pop energy that make every episode a visual pleasure. All 3 seasons close the arc, satisfyingly something few superhero series manage. Based on Gerard Way's comic, it's science fiction with genuine heart that doesn't apologize for being exactly what it is. Number 14. Altered Carbon. In a distant future, death is no longer permanent. Human consciousness can be stored on a device called a cortical stack and transferred into a new body whenever the previous one is destroyed. Former soldier Takeshi Kovacs has been dead for centuries when he's revived in a body that doesn't feel like his, with a mission: solve the murder of one of the wealthiest men alive, a man who was killed in his own body and doesn't trust the official investigation. What follows is a visually stunning science fiction neo-noir built on genuine philosophical questions about identity when the body is interchangeable, and morality when death is a temporary inconvenience for anyone rich enough to avoid it. The first season is one of the most ambitious things Netflix has produced in the genre, top-tier visual effects, and a narrative that fuses classic noir with sci-fi action. The second loses some momentum, but the world remains compelling. Canceled before it could develop its full potential, it's one of the catalog's most underappreciated gems and deserves far more recognition than it received. Number 13. Lost in Space. The Robinson family was aboard a colonizer ship headed to a new planet when everything went wrong, crashing on an unknown and dangerous world far from their destination. John and Maureen Robinson, along with their children Judy, Penny, and Will, must survive a hostile environment while trying to find a way back to the colony and complete their journey. Will, the youngest, forms a powerful bond with an alien robot of extraordinary strength, and that connection becomes one of the series' emotional cornerstones. But they're not alone. The mysterious Dr. Smith constantly complicates every decision they make. Netflix reimagined this classic 60s show with high production values, stunning visual effects, and a genuinely family-friendly tone that never sacrifices tension. The Robinsons work because the characters feel real in both their differences and their love for each other. The series was planned as a trilogy from the start and sticks the landing satisfyingly, which is increasingly rare in the streaming era, a journey worth completing from start to finish. Number 12. Shadow and Bone. The world of the series is divided by the Fold, a permanent, deadly stretch of darkness that separates the nation of Ravka from its enemies. Alina Starkov, an orphaned army mapmaker, discovers at the worst possible moment that she has a unique power. She can summon light. That power makes her the key to her nation's survival, and the center of a political conspiracy she didn't know existed. While the Grisha, the magic-wielding faction of this world, pulls toward its own interests, a group of thieves called the Crows complicates everything further. Shadow and Bone adapts Leigh Bardugo's novels with considerable visual care and a world mythology built with real coherence. The first season is solid, and the second expands the universe in ways that revealed all the potential the story had. Netflix canceled it before that potential could be fully realized, leaving the second season finale as an abrupt ending for a story that deserved more time. For fans of fantasy with science fiction elements, it's a series that leaves you wanting more of something genuinely good. Number 11. Sense8. 8 people in 8 cities across the world: Nairobi, Chicago, Mexico City, Seoul, Mumbai, Berlin, San Francisco, and London wake up connected in a way no known science can explain. They're sensates, beings who instantaneously share emotions, skills, and lived experience. A Kenyan detective can suddenly fight like a South Korean martial artist. An Icelandic hacker can code like a German expert. The connection makes them extraordinarily powerful and extraordinarily vulnerable. At the same time, a shadowy organization called BPO hunts them to suppress whatever they are. What sets Sense8 apart from anything else in its genre is its unlimited emotional ambition. The Wachowskis built something that functions simultaneously as a science fiction thriller and a radical celebration of human diversity and empathy. It was canceled for budget reasons, but fan reaction was so intense that Netflix funded a 2-hour special to close the story. It's not perfect, some stretches run long, but at its core beats something genuine and alive that very few series in the entire history of streaming have matched. Number 10. Into the Night. A nighttime flight from Brussels is hijacked by a soldier who gives the passengers an impossible explanation. The sun has become lethal. Anything touched by sunlight dies within minutes. The only solution is to stay in darkness, which means flying constantly westward, chasing the night around the planet, unable to land until they find somewhere survivors can exist. On board is a group of people of different nationalities, languages, and motivations, and the pressure of survival begins revealing the best and worst in each of them. Into the Night is a Belgian series that works with a simple and devastatingly effective science fiction premise. It never explains where the phenomenon came from. It uses it as constant pressure that strips its characters bare. It's a survival thriller with sustained pacing, built on the tension of strangers who need to trust each other or die. The first season is one of the most effective international genre entries Netflix has produced. Canceled after 2 seasons with its story unresolved, but what exists is genuinely effective genre television. Number 9. Supercell. In South London, 5 strangers with nothing in common start developing extraordinary powers. The one thing connecting them isn't something any of them chose. They're all black, and they all share a family history of sickle cell disease. Michael, a delivery driver with plans for his future, is the first to realize something is changing inside him. But before he can make sense of it, the woman he loves disappears. To save her, he'll need to find the other 4 and bring them together, just as each of them is barely starting to understand their own abilities, and a secretive organization is watching from the shadows. Supercell is one of the most genuinely fresh entries in the superhero genre in years. Creator Ratman's series doesn't try to imitate the Marvel formula or chase Hollywood spectacle. It has its own identity, deep cultural roots, fully realized characters, and a pace that knows when to push and when to breathe. Season 2 is in production and promises to go darker and hit harder. A series that proves superhero storytelling can be genuinely original when it comes from a different voice. Number 8. Alice in Borderland. Arisu and his friends are young Tokyoites who one night find themselves in a completely deserted version of their city. Nobody around, no cell signal, no explanation. They quickly discover that this parallel Tokyo has its own rules. There are life or death games, and those who don't play die anyway. Each game has its own difficulty level marked on a deck of cards, and surviving requires not just physical ability, but intelligence, strategy, and the capacity to trust people you've never met. Alice in Borderland adapts Haruaso's manga with a fidelity that original fans applaud and a visual production that rivals any first-tier series worldwide. The first season set the standard, the second exceeded it significantly, delivering a final arc that satisfies at a level few survival series manage. After Squid Game's global success, comparisons are inevitable, but Alice in Borderland has its own identity and a narrative complexity that makes it genuinely different. Science fiction survival that doesn't underestimate its audience. Number 7. Katla. Iceland's Katla volcano has been erupting for a year, covering the small town of Vik in ash and forcing most of its residents to evacuate. A few stay behind, among them Grima, who can't leave because she's still searching for her sister who disappeared a year ago. What starts to happen next has no rational explanation. People who died years ago begin emerging from around the volcano, covered in mud and looking exactly as they did before they died. They're not ghosts or zombies, they're physically real, and they don't know they're dead. Katla is an Icelandic science fiction series that operates at the rarest frequency in the genre. Grief made visible, pain that can't be processed until it takes a physical form. It's slow, atmospheric, and deliberately ambiguous. It never explains what's happening because the explanation isn't what matters. What matters is what the living do when confronted with what they couldn't close. One of the most original and most underappreciated international series Netflix has produced, for viewers who want science fiction that moves them before it amazes them. Number 6. Russian Doll. Nadia dies on the night of her birthday party and wakes up in the same bathroom at the same party, ready to repeat the night. Every variation ends the same way. She dies, starts over. At first, it seems like a technical glitch, but the series from Natasha Lyonne and Amy Poehler has more interesting things in mind than the mechanism itself. The loop isn't Nadia's problem. The loop is the solution the universe is offering her to confront everything she's spent decades avoiding. Childhood trauma, broken relationships, a self-esteem that functions as a shield. Russian Doll is a dark comedy that uses the premise of Groundhog Day to build something entirely different, an emotional exploration of what it means to live the same life without learning anything from it. Natasha Lyonne's performance is extraordinary, strange, magnetic, and deeply human all at once. The first season is perfect. The second is more ambitious and more divisive. Together, they represent some of the best science fiction comedy Netflix has produced, light in tone, but with something genuinely real to say. Number 5. Tribes of Europa. The year is 2040. Europe collapsed in 1997 after a mysterious technological event that wiped out all electricity and connectivity. What remained was a continent fragmented into tribes, fighting each other over territory and over an artifact of unknown origin that could permanently shift the balance of power. 3 siblings who lived in isolation with their peaceful tribe are violently separated and end up in completely different corners of the same war-torn continent. Tribes of Europa is a German post-apocalyptic science fiction production with considerable world-building ambition. It blends survival dystopia, tribal politics, and a visual energy somewhere between Mad Max and Game of Thrones. The first season establishes a universe across 6 episodes that clearly had much more story to tell. Netflix canceled it before it could tell that story, adding it to a long list of international series that promised more than they were allowed to deliver. What exists has enough energy and originality that the cancellation genuinely hurts. Number 4. Lock and Key. After their father's murder, the Locke family moves to the ancestral family estate in Matheson, Massachusetts. What they find inside changes everything they thought they knew about their family and the world. Magical keys hidden in every corner of the house, each with its own distinct power. One opens a door to anywhere in the world, another turns you into a ghost, another pulls a memory from your mind and makes it a physical object. What they also find is that something in the darkness wants those keys, and that not everyone in their lives is what they appear to be. Lock and Key adapts Joe Hill's acclaimed comic with a production that treats the magical world with genuine inventiveness and affection. This isn't horror, it's fantasy with tension, with young characters who develop meaningfully across seasons, and with a sense of wonder that's rarely sustained across 3 full seasons of television. The arc closes in a reasonably satisfying way. For viewers looking for something that blends family drama with ideas-driven science fiction, Lock and Key delivers a solid and enjoyable experience from start to finish. Number 3. The Sandman. Morpheus, the king of dreams and lord of the dreaming, is captured by an occultist in 1916 and spends decades trapped in the physical world while his realm disintegrates. When he finally escapes, he has to rebuild what he lost while confronting the enemies who exploited his absence and the mistakes he made before being captured. The adaptation of Neil Gaiman's comic came after decades of failed attempts, and when it finally arrived, it arrived well. The series captures the dreamlike atmosphere, mythological scale, and emotional depth of the source material with a fidelity that fans of the comic celebrated and that new viewers could enjoy without any prior knowledge. Tom Sturridge as Morpheus is a perfect casting choice, ethereal, distant, and profoundly melancholic. Each episode has its own distinct visual and tonal identity. Season 2 is confirmed. The Sandman is one of those adaptations that proves the most ambitious literary science fiction can reach the screen without losing what made it special on the page. Number 2. Black Mirror. Every episode of Black Mirror is a standalone story, a jump into a possible future where some technological advancement reveals the darkest and most vulnerable aspects of human nature. Social networks that literally determine your social worth, memories that can be replayed on loop, video games where pain is real, artificial intelligences that love you with an intensity you can't reciprocate. No supervillains, no galactic catastrophes, just ordinary people in extraordinary situations, trapped in moral dilemmas that technology creates and no ethical framework was prepared to handle. Black Mirror has spent over a decade as the most influential science fiction series on television, and not because of its answers, but because of its questions. Not every episode lands equally. Some seasons are stronger than others, but the best ones are among the most unsettling and brilliant things modern fiction has produced. Entire series and complete careers have been built around what this anthology proved was possible. For the science fiction fan who hasn't seen it yet, it's essential. For those who already know it, there's always one more episode that changed something in you without you noticing. Number 1. Dark. In the small German town of Winden, a child's disappearance triggers an investigation that cuts across time. 4 families, 4 generations, a web of secrets stretching from 1953 to 2053 and beyond, a loop with no clear beginning and no clear end. Jonas Conwald is the thread that holds it together, a teenager who discovers that the caves beneath Winden are time portals, and that every choice anyone made in the past has been shaping the present all along. Dark is the most ambitious and best executed science fiction series Netflix has ever produced, and probably one of the most structurally complex in the history of television. This is not background viewing. It demands your full attention, notebook in hand if possible. But what that commitment earns you is a complete, internally consistent, and emotionally devastating narrative arc, closing with one of the most satisfying final sequences in the streaming era. Baranbo Odar and Janchi Fries built something that doesn't leave you. Once you step into Winden, Winden doesn't let go. The undisputed number 1 of this list and of many others. And that wraps up our tour through 20 science fiction series available on Netflix that deserve a spot on your watch list. From global phenomena to international proposals that few people know about, today's list covers the full range. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what's coming next. Tell us in the comments which of these you've already seen, which ones you still have to watch, and whether you think we left any off the list. See you in the next video with more recommendations and more content for those who take their series seriously.